Hello and welcome to the D
and A of Home Interiors, the podcast which is all about empowering you to make confident interior and furnishing decisions for your home. I'm Audrey, founder of Audrey and Interior Design.
And I'm Deirdre, founder of youfurnish.com. Search 100 plus furniture retailers on one website. The DNA of Home Interiors is proudly sponsored by checkatrade.com. If you need help with your next home improvement project, you can search from over 39,000 recommended, vetted and monitored trades on checkatrade.com. So the Dulux 2022 Colour of the Year has been unveiled as Bright Skies. Now, they describe it as this serene shade of blue is designed to emulate the vast open sky and bring a feeling of calmness and optimism into your space. Audrey, what are your thoughts on Bright Skies?
Well, I have to say I've never been much of a blue person, so this is very recent news. I'm still adjusting and considering. I think what's really important to me is to look at what colours are going with it. So when I say I've never been much of a blue person, that's because I tend to shy away from the cooler colours, especially if it's, paint on the walls, and that could maybe make a room feel kind of, on the colder side. So I never like to completely rule out colours, but what I do like to do is consider them as part of a palette. So I think for me, how I'd make this work is by introducing those warmer tones with it. So even Dulux have some of these palettes they've put together showing that new Bright Skies colour with some deep yellows, sort of mustardy tones, but also some coral, sort of pinky red shades, which are really, really deep. And to me, then they just contrast nicely and give you that bit of warmth back in to go with it. So what do you think?
Well, I should describe the colour for anybody listening that might not have seen it. So Bright Skies, I would describe it as a baby blue, a very sort of a light blue shade. Is that a fair reflection, Audrey? Is that how you would describe the colour?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably slightly more muted than a very traditional baby blue, but it certainly puts people on the right radar, I think. If you haven't actually seen the colour in reality. I mean, I would have assumed it had quite a bit of grey to it. I have heard Marianne Shillingford, creative director of Deluxe, speak about it, saying that actually there isn't that much grey in it. So I think some people's fear was that it might be more of a grey than a blue, and I've been told that it's certainly not the case. Now, for me, actually, I to be honest, I wouldn't really mind if it was a bit of, it had that bit of grey in it, because I do quite like those sort of, if I need to go blue, I like it to be that sort of bluey grey shade so that it just has a bit more depth and a bit more warmth to it.
So I suppose, Audrey, the first thing to say around Bright Skies as well and how you would describe the shade, if you want to learn more about that, we actually have a podcast where we had Marianne Shillingford as a guest. She is the creative director at Dulux. So if you want to see how they come up with all of the names of the paints, do take a listen. Marianne has a quote actually around the 2022 Colour of the Year. And she says that Bright Skies makes rooms look like they are a holiday. This uplifting blue is fresh, warm, and invigorating, and binds all the elements in a space together effortlessly. I quite like that language, Audrey, the word invigorating. It's breathing life. It's very contrasting to last year's colour, Brave Ground, which was more cocooning and nurturing and warm. And I must say that when I saw Bright Skies, I did think of a holiday. I thought of beautiful cottages out in Greece, whitewashed walls and inside this nice blue colour, which would be, cooling and fresh. And I very much thought of it as a summertime colour. And I think if I was choosing it for my home, I would want it to be in a summer home if I had one potentially, rather than having to bring it through the winter, the harsher winter of the UK or Ireland indeed.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's so interesting about this is the fact that, I mean, the colour of the year every year that Dulux bring out is always a reflection on what's been going on in the world. So outside of the world of, decor and interior design and everything. And, this year and last year, the big thing that's been going on for everybody is COVID and, lockdowns and so on, and lots of time being spent at home. And so last year, I know that colour Brave Ground you mentioned got quite a bit of kind of, I suppose, negativity, maybe negative reactions from people who found it to be, on the dull side and not an exciting colour, let's say. But
I really liked it.
But it was all about, as you say, it was a nurturing colour, and it was about sort of continuing to like look inwards and, make our homes a safe place. And, this year is the complete opposite to that. So the colour is the opposite, and the reason behind it is the opposite. So now it's like, instead of looking inwards, we're looking outwards. And I guess, we're looking outwards in terms of being hopeful, that we're coming out of the pandemic. But also, I think what's happened to a lot of people, like definitely this has happened to me, where I just started to really crave being able to see the horizon, like living somewhere like London, anywhere very built up, and not having the usual amount of kind of, flexibility to be able to travel or go abroad or see the sea, see the skies, and you just kind of wanted that. So I think this is very much about that. What do you think of when you think what you miss in a city? And this Bright Skies kind of gives you that kind of visual association. Yeah. So like, it's one thing to say that, and that's absolutely correct. And I think it's a brilliant colour choice to reflect all that. But then it's another thing to say, if you're in, the UK and it's a dark winter's day, is that still going to have that impact if it's on your walls? So that's where it needs to be a carefully considered choice, I think.
You've summed it up perfectly for me, Audrey. I love the thinking behind it all. I think it really resonates. Even the language that they used to describe it at Dulux it's perfect. It's, adding a much needed breath of fresh air. This dreamy summer, sky blue actually is what they call it, is the antidote to being stuck inside. I think that's something we can all resonate. And I think, again, actually this dreamy summer, it is more of a summer than potentially a winter, which, just as we're beginning to go into winter, maybe is a little bit of maybe where I'm struggling with it. It reconnects us with the sky and makes even the smallest rooms appear airy and spacious. And I can definitely see it having that effect in a small room. I think I'd really want to be cognizant of what the function of the room was before I might be brave enough to go for that colour in a room.
Yeah, because I think, for example, the first place I could imagine using it very successfully would be in an office space in a home, because then I think it is quite invigorating, and it's like more of a fresh kind of colour.
I thought they always told you to use energetic colours, Audrey, in an office. So like a big orange to have your creative juices being stimulated.
Yeah, well, I would say as a wall colour, that to me is energising, that kind of colour, because it is bright and it's like a colour that sort of opens up the space rather than closes it in. But then by all means contrast that with your oranges, your yellows, your corals, like I was saying earlier, but in terms of accessories in the room, or whether that's a lamp on your desk or, picture frames or whatever it might be. Whereas, doing the really, really vibrant sort of orange on the wall in an office might be just too overpowering for a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, as I say, that's an area where I suppose I could see it working, for me. But then, in a living room, it probably wouldn't be my top choice as a wall colour, because I would want that room to sort of feel a bit deeper, a bit cozier, and less about trying to sort of open it out and reflect loads of light around, but more about it being kind of a cosy evening room, I guess.
Yes. Now, one of the partners of Dulux is Tops Tiles, and they have released a tile, Bright Skies coloured, in honour of the new colour of the year. And I must say, I thought it was beautiful. The tile is ridged, so it sort of has that textured look of it, really connecting with nature. It's a soft matte finish that gives it sort of a natural look as well. And I just thought it was really sort of fun. It's got depth, it's got texture. And I thought it was really interesting that actually, when we think about colours, there's numerous ways to bring them into our home as well. It doesn't necessarily need to be the paint on the wall. It could be in other forms, such as a tile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that is a very important consideration, when we're thinking about this idea of sort of whether colours are maybe too cold for us, or the idea of what the colours are paired up with. And so like a colour will react so differently depending on what other colours are in the room, and then also depending on how much of that colour is in the room. So if the Bright Skies is a really appealing colour in terms of just a colour on a paint swatch that you do think you like, you may feel it's too kind of cool for the whole room, but it might be perfect on, whether it's a fabric on a chair or curtains or something else, or like you say, the tiles. So I think it's, when we talk just about colour, it's important to kind of step a little bit away from just the paint and, review the combinations of the colours on all the objects and surfaces in the room.
Quick shout out for our sponsor, checkatrade.com. Search recommended tradespeople online with checkatrade.com. I think one other thing that wasn't really mentioned but very much resonates with me in terms of when I look at the colour, it's like I can see it against white. It's very clean. It reminds me of like cleanliness, and I suppose with COVID, the washing of the hands, the germs, not in a clinical way, but in a fresh and very clean way. It seems to resonate with me on that, I think, when I've seen images of it.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I've noticed that across the board with kind of all interior kind of finishes and decisions on things, just that influence now. I think the other consideration we have, even just subconsciously, about being drawn towards things that feel quite clean and fresh, in a way that previously may not have sort of needed to resonate with us, in the same way. But it's all the kind of, I was going to say the brainwashing about hand washing, but that it's become part of our mindset now, really, hasn't it? Just the kind of hygienic side of things. And, I think that does really play a part. And I've noticed, I think, a combination of that and what I was saying earlier about kind of really craving the wider horizon and that sort of sense of colour and light you get when you're out of the city and you can see that expanse. And I started to use some colour like that in our house in London before we moved earlier in the summer. And, this is actually colour I would suggest for anybody who kind of likes the almost intention of the Bright Skies, but finds it a bit too maybe like the baby blue, like you mentioned. This other Dulux colour, which is called Clouded Pearl. So probably if I was choosing Dulux colour,
what colour would you call that apart from Clouded Pearl?
So Clouded Pearl. So it's quite similar, I would say, but it's got that touch more grey to it. So for me, it's like if you felt that, that was a bit like baby blue, the Bright Skies, this is a more grown-up version. That's kind of how I would choose to describe it, because it's more muted. So it still has the freshness aspect, I find, that I do like in that type of shade. Still, for me, probably not the type of colour I'd go all out on in a living room or an area that I wanted to feel cosy. But I'd actually used it in our kitchen, just doing some colour blocking, like everything was white, but then I put this colour sort of 3/4 of the way up a wall beside a wooden worktop, and so contrasted so well with the warmth of the oak wood worktop, and then put a round black mirror kind of halfway onto this colour and halfway on the white, so it kind of crossed over that line between the two colours, and the thin black frame of the mirror with this sort of pale bluey grey shade I just found really appealing together, and then the sort of bits of white and wood with it. So yeah, Dulux Clouded Pearl, it comes in 4 shades, 1, 2, 3 and 4. It was number 1 I used, which is the deepest one. It's not very deep, but it would probably be similar-ish in tone to the Bright Skies. And then it goes down like really, really light, almost white on the 2, 3 and 4. Yeah, that's, but again, even with that, I would go with the sort of make sure there's little pops of warmer tones with it to balance it, like the yellows or the corals or the oranges.
Yeah. Now, Dulux is not the only person to come out with a colour of the year, probably the most famous, but we've got quite a similar colour chosen by Benjamin Moore. Audrey, can you tell us more?
Yeah, so Benjamin Moore, which is an American paint brand, but we're seeing a bit more of it in this part of the world now. So they have a colour which is Teal, it's called, and it's like a very deep teal. So, you know, when I said I wouldn't paint my living room in the bright skies, if I was to be offered this as an alternative for the living room, I would absolutely go for it. So it's a really deep, warm, kind of enveloping type colour, I'd say, you know, where it would make the room feel cozy. But yeah, I wouldn't choose it for a workspace. I wouldn't choose it for all over my kitchen, you know. So again, kind of fit for purpose if you want it to be cozy and deep.
I'm loving the language of how they describe these paints. So Teal, it's a beautiful blend of green and blue softened with a touch of grey. It's described as an intriguing mid-tone that creates natural harmony and invites us to reflect and respect and reset. Balanced and soothing, it's a colour that creates a casual elegance in interior spaces. Now, frankly, I'm not sure if any of that really means anything when you would read it and you haven't seen the pictures beside it, but I just love their descriptions of it.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful sort of tealy colour, you know, nearly that sort of greeny elements coming up through it, and it quite reminds me of the colour that I currently have my bathrooms painted. So they're both internal rooms, there's no natural light in them, and it's sort of one of those spaces that I was like, oh, I can take a bit of a risk on it, and I went with that colour, and I love the colour.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's definitely it is absolutely one of my favourite types of colour, generally for you know, for paint, I must say, as long as it is that sort of cozy feel that you're looking for.
So there's similarities between that colour and the Dulux Bright Skies in terms of the elements of blue within it. I think, although very different, I suppose, resonating from the colour. Now, the Pantone colour from 2021, Audrey, that's quite a difference. Versus that more bluey tinge. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, so so Pantone actually brought out a combination of colours. So it was the grey with the yellow. So the actual names for those you'll have to
Illuminating and ultimate grey.
Yeah, so illuminating is the yellow, isn't it?
Yellow and grey for anybody that looks at colours.
Yeah. So yeah, illuminating being the yellow and then ultimate grey. But, you know, I suppose what's interesting from my perspective and massively helpful for people is the fact that they did choose two colours and not just one.
Have you ever seen that before?
The two colours?
Yes.
No, because I think normally it was one colour with Pantone, although I'm not 100% sure on that. But I think I think the way it was phrased when it was launched was that it was the ultimate grey was the colour, but the yellow was being put with it to kind of balance it. So, and that's exactly the reason why I'm saying I think it's a great thing to have two colours rather than one, because like I said earlier, I think the power of a colour is so dependent on what other colours are going with it. So the ultimate grey could just feel like, oh, it's grey, it's not exciting, you know. Then you put this yellow with it, and because it's the specific combination of two, you know, particular shades of like yellow and grey together, that right combination, that you get something that's really contrasting and, you know, that just works so well as a pair. So I think that's a great example, just saying grey, you know, you might just rule off grey, it's boring. You look at it with something like that yellow and you go, oh yes, because if you use that yellow, whether it's a sofa, a wall, whatever it is you choose, whatever material you use, choose to use it through, you know, you are most likely to want to have other colours with it, aren't you? So it's a good
Now, I
starting point.
particularly like these colours, Audrey, because as you'll be aware, I've got a lot of grey and yellow in my home. I love the yellow in terms of the upliftingness of it. Described by Pantone as a marriage of colour, conveying a message of strength and hopefulness that is both enduring and uplifting. So I suppose that's the strength of the grey and the uplifting from the yellow. And then yellow and grey harmonise together to create the ideal palette that will give your home a much needed yet subtle boost of cheer as we look forward to spring. So interesting as well, because this was obviously released back at the beginning of the year. So it's very different timing. And I suppose the timing has a big impact on how we actually think about colours.
Yes, yeah, timing absolutely certainly does. The last one I was going to mention was just that what Farrow and Ball have done for 2022 is, rather than launch a new colour like Deluxe have done, they've actually picked out 5 colours from their existing range, which they are calling the colours of 2022. And it's been interesting to just look at those. So those colours are, I'll just go through them briefly one by one. So Baboot is, well, you would absolutely love this one, Deirdre. Baboot is your colour. It's like the mustardy yellow tone. It's great. And then there's Schoolhouse White, which is like an off-white, reminiscent of, well, schoolhouses, that old sort of school kind of white we think of. And then there's Breakfast Room Green, which actually I have seen a number of people use over like recent times. It's a great colour, quite a deep green, not teal like the Benjamin Moore egg and green teal that we were talking about, but a bit more sort of foresty green. And then Stone Blue, which it's almost like if you mix the stone blue with the breakfast room green, you would have your teal. So it's like pulling out the blue and the green from the teal and having those separate. So that stone blue I absolutely love. It's very deep, but it's very muted. So it's got a lot of grey to it. So it's not like a sort of a royal blue. It's a lot more subtle than that. And then the final one is Incardine, which is a red colour, but it's a how would I describe this one? So it's not like a sort of a coral red. It's more of a rich red, but looks absolutely stunning with pretty much all of those other colours as an accent. Particularly, I would say, probably there was a time where people were getting crazy with red walls and stuff. Now, I think more, well, have it. It could be the type of colour that runs through a fabric or a wallpaper or something like that. Or back to the colour blocking idea, using it as like a thin stripe around a doorway, or so if you want to create kind of a feature like that in a room.
I do actually love the idea of that sort of, not maybe red, but like a deeper sort of winey coloured red. And I think I've just seen it. It looks so warm, even if it's on a feature wall, or particularly with like cream cabinets.
Yeah.
If you had your cabinets and then shelving, and behind the shelving you've got that sort of that deep red, I think it can be used for really dramatic effect. But Audrey, it's just so interesting to see the vastness of all of the different colours from all of the different paint experts.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It feels like there's a bit of a colour war going on at the moment. But, whether you go for the kind of the light and bright, airy approach, or whether you go for the, all these Farrow and Ball colours are more, as they tend to be anyway, sort of a bit more muted and, it kind of, very cosy colours, very rich, very warm. Yeah. So, even that Schoolhouse White, it's not like bright white, it's more muted and warmer.
And I think it's really important actually to have that differentiated, I suppose, range of colours across the industry, because as individuals we're all different and we all like different colours. And I think that's what's really nice, is that regardless of what colour you would like, you can probably find, the colour even being backed up by somebody, because not one colour will suit everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Audrey, I did have to share a fun fact with you around paint colours. So I was reading that paint searches for external is on the up in terms of searches on the internet. And this is because bright exteriors and front doors are on the rise. Have you seen that?
Yeah, there's a street in London that I love, Alma Street in Kentish Town, that has coloured fronts of houses, like they're small Victorian houses, all painted different colours, and I've always thought that's amazing.
But picturesque.
Yeah, but I think it is something that we're starting to see more of, isn't it?
So the interesting fact is that the colour you paint your home could make a £20,000 difference to the price of your house. And whilst traditionally we might have had white and black exteriors, the colours which are on the rise at the moment and that are popular are grey and pink. So pink is mentioned in particular and backed up by some real estate agents saying that a house that's painted in, say, a pink fascia could generate more interest much quicker, creating a bidding war and pushing up the price by as much as £20,000. So maybe think twice about what colour you're going to go for on the outside of your home.
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating, isn't it?
There we go. I can't paint the outside of my home, but I think you've got a chance. So I'll let you test that one out for us first.
If you enjoyed our podcast, we would be delighted if you could rate, review and subscribe on your favourite podcast provider. This will help others who are seeking home and furnishing advice and inspiration discover the DNA of home interiors. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter at the DNA of Home Interiors.
If you are looking for inspiration and help in designing your home interiors, take a look at Audrey Whelan's masterclasses on audreywhelan.com/events. And don't forget to check out youfurnish.com, a search and comparison website which helps connect people with amazing furniture from over 100 retailers. We designed it to solve the problem we and thousands like us faced furnishing our homes. And now we are really excited that everyone can search, discover, compare and shop for their home all in one place.
Thank you to our sponsor checkatrade.com for their support in bringing this episode to you. And most importantly, thank you all for listening today.
We hope you can join us next time.